2 years shy of a century. He's recorded albums. He's had his own act in Las Vegas. He's acted in films, but most likely you know Peter Marshall from his years as the original host of the Hollywood Squares, where tic-tac-toe met zany one-liners. Here to discuss that and more on the RockTrax Live Line is author Adam Nedeff. Adam, welcome back to RockTrax on Rock 104. Great to have you with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, looking forward to this indeed. Adam, by the way, was with us a few years back ahead of the release of Quizmaster, a book about Bill Cullen, a fantastic read. And he's written books about other game show personalities over the years. There's a book about Dennis James, a book about Alan Ludden, and just a fantastic series of books about the wonderful world of classic game shows. And you've met Peter Marshall on many occasions, I understand.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to meet him for my biography about Gene Rayburn. A friend arranged for the two of us to have lunch so I could pick his brain because he'd been a friend of Gene's. And it just ended up having a wonderful time chatting with Peter Marshall and getting to know him. I showed up there wearing my hoodie from college. I went to Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia. Huntington is his home state. And so that was how I identified myself as just a total stranger in his eyes walking into the restaurant. He sees me wearing this Marshall hoodie and he says, "Oh, you're Adam, the game show guy." And I think that's me. So I can't wait to see who plays me in the story of his life now that I've told that story. And the wild thing that I always wanted to ask him if his name came from Marshall University, and as it turns out, that's not where it came from at all. It's actually a total coincidence that he ended up with Marshall as a stage name. It had nothing to do with his home state. His sister Joanne had moved to New York to become a model, and her modeling agency had given her the name Marshall. So when Peter decided he was going to go into show business, he figured, well, my sister and I should have the same last name. So that's why he ended up with the last name Marshall. But now the funny thing about that is coming up with the stage name for himself, Peter and his agent were talking it over, and Peter said, I could go by my mother's maiden name, and I could make that my stage name. And his agent asked, so what's your mother's maiden name? And Peter says, my mother's maiden name is Frampton. And the agent said no, because he said that Peter Frampton would not make a good name for a singer, which is what Peter was starting off doing.
Isn't that wild? Now, when did this conversation take place? Just for our...
This would have been about 10 years ago. And the funny thing is, entertainers have no qualms about exaggerating or making something up in service of a good story. So, I actually went ahead and dug into his family history, and yeah, his mother's maiden name was Frampton. Okay. He wasn't kidding about this.
Okay. Just to clarify, the conversation between Peter and his agent, when did that conversation take place?
Oh, I'm sorry. That would have been, gosh, the 30s or the 40s, very early at the very beginning of his career, because Peter had been a page at NBC as a teenager, and he was trying to move into singing as a career, and did quite well with it.
So imagine that, hearing Peter Frampton in the 1930s or 1940s, but we didn't until 1960s, 1970s. Imagine that. Yeah. I mentioned earlier the world of entertainment has two different Nancy Wilsons, the soul singer, and the member of the rock group Heart. In the world of rock and roll, we have two different Mick Joneses, one in Foreigner and the other in The Clash. And to think we could have had two different Peter Framptons. One as the host of Hollywood Squares, and easily the world of rock and roll has been well represented on Hollywood Squares, and Alice Cooper has been a guest of Hollywood Squares, and easily that other Peter Frampton could have been in the grid of 9 on Hollywood Squares easily. Wolfman Jack has also been a guest of Hollywood Squares, and many rock legends have been guests throughout the years. It
really was a fascinating and formidable list, and it's one of those things, the longer they stayed on the air, the more impressive the guest list became, and it just Hollywood Squares just became an institution, and it became a thing that you did when you were famous. And it really is just impressive and amazing and miraculous, the list of people who... Aretha Franklin did the show, and I'd say maybe that and What's My Line as a mystery guest are probably the only two game shows that Aretha Franklin ever did. But yeah, Little Anthony, Freddie Cannon, Fabian, Connie Francis, Bobby V, Martha Reeves, Frankie Avalon, Patty Page. It's a real list of superstars from the world of music who did Hollywood Squares.
If I'm not mistaken, members of the Marshall Tucker Band were guests of Hollywood Squares.
Probably, yeah. and Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis Jr. So you just
Oh, absolutely.
I hate the cliche, the list goes on and on and on, but
Mm-hmm.
it kind of does.
Absolutely. Getting back to Peter, he had a birthday recently, turning 98, as we mentioned earlier, and there was a terrific webcast on YouTube, and we were talking before we went on the air that I got to see it, you got to see it as well. Let's recap for those who didn't get to see it. What was that like?
It was Peter and his people always make sure to dig something up for Peter's birthday. Peter has saved so much stuff from his career, and so Hollywood Squares fans got treated to an episode of Hollywood Squares that Peter happened to have in his video library that has never been rerun, so we got to see that. But also, it's neat to be reminded what this guy did that originally made him famous. Again, going back to singing, that was Peter's bread and butter. Before Hollywood Squares ever existed, Peter had a long and amazing career as a singer. And to be able to see the footage that he brought up of himself as a guest on different TV shows, singing and doing a comedy act with Tommy Noonan on the Ed Sullivan Show, and just seeing what a gifted entertainer he was, it's just remarkable. And it's one of those things where you look back at that era of show business, and this isn't fuddy-duddy talk. I very much enjoy modern entertainment also, but a lot of current entertainers are in a box. They are entertainers or they are singers. And it's neat to look back. There was this era of entertainers where everybody did a little bit of everything. You told jokes and you sang and you danced in your act. You were a one-man variety show. And that was Peter's career early on. And it took extraordinary talent to just do all those things.
Absolutely. In case you missed it, and more than likely many of you did, it's on Peter Marshall's official YouTube channel. His 98th and 97th birthday celebrations on YouTube easily can be found through a simple search. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. Changing subjects just a smidge, one of your recent book projects is Gong This Book. As the title would suggest, it's a look at The Gong Show, Chuck Barris, and his other productions. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, this is a project that I started about 6 years ago. It takes a while to craft a 300-page book about the history of a TV show. But this is a history of the Gong Show from those who lived it. I got a chance to talk to a lot of Chuck's own employees. I got a chance to talk to a lot of contestants. I was able to do detective work and track down about a dozen people who'd been on the show's contestants and get to know them and get to know their stories. And from that, I managed to cobble together this story of this bizarre, unique, wonderful oddity that happened in American television in the 1970s, and the show that shaped a lot of what modern television became in the decades to come. It was your forerunner to American Idol and America's Got Talent, et cetera, et cetera.
And where can we find said book?
It's available at Amazon. It's available on barnesandnoble.com, and you can also find it directly from the publisher at bearmanormedia.com, BEARMANOR media.com.
Okay. Gong This Book by Adam Nedeff. Again, it's a great read, and other great reads by Adam Nedeff. Check them out. You'll be glad you did. Adam, anything else to add here at the end?
Just all of my books are available on bearmanormedia.com or Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Really just do a search for my name, Adam, N as in Nancy, E, D as in David, E, and then F as in Frank. Just a caveat, if you're considering buying the book about Bill Cullen, I do want to let you know there is a second edition in the works. So
Excellent.
You may want to hold off on buying the Bill Cullen biography for the moment. But there's some neat new information out there about Bill that I'm going to be putting into print shortly.
Oh, that is excellent. I mean, Bill's story is one that deserved to be told a long time ago, and I'm glad that you're the one telling it.
Well, and it's such an involved story. That's why it merited a second edition, because it's now been 12 years since my first book about Bill came out, and we kept finding information about him in the 12 years since.
Oh, that is excellent. Excellent. So, Quizmaster Part 2, I guess we're calling it?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. We'll be looking for that pretty soon. And, Adam, keep in touch. And thanks for joining us here on our 28th anniversary special of RockTrax on 104.5 Rock 104.
Congratulations.